Tonight, we are going to spend a little time with a familiar experience, the quiet moment when the room becomes still, the lights are low, and the body is ready to rest. But the mind continues moving. One thought leads to another. A conversation from earlier returns. A small decision begins to divide into many possible outcomes. A question that seems simple during the day becomes larger in the darkness. This is often called overthinking. It can feel as though the mind has forgotten how to stop. But overthinking is not usually a sign that the brain is broken. In many ways, it is the result of systems that are doing exactly what they evolved to do. Remember the past, predict the future, notice uncertainty, and search for solutions. The human brain is not simply a machine that reacts to the present moment. It is constantly building models of what might happen next. Even while you are sitting quietly, your mind is comparing new information with old memories. It is estimating risks, imagining possibilities, and preparing responses that may never be needed. Most of this activity happens without conscious effort. You do not have to tell your brain to predict the next sound in a room or to notice when something feels unusual. It does these things automatically because prediction helps the nervous system use energy efficiently. When the brain predicts correctly, the world feels smooth and familiar. When something is uncertain, however, the mind may keep returning to it. Uncertainty is like an unfinished sentence. The brain wants to know how it ends. This may explain why unresolved events often remain more mentally active than completed ones. A finished task can be placed into memory. An unfinished task may continue to appear, as though the mind is quietly reminding itself not to forget. Sometimes this is helpful. Remembering an appointment, reconsidering a plan, or thinking carefully before an important decision can protect us from mistakes. But the same mental system can continue long after it has stopped producing useful answers. The thought repeats, but nothing new is discovered. The mind walks around the same question, approaching it from different directions, hoping that one more turn will finally reveal certainty. This is one of the gentle differences between reflection and rumination. Reflection usually moves somewhere. It may lead to a clearer understanding, a decision, or a practical next step. Rumination tends to circle. It repeats familiar questions such as, "Why did that happen?" Or, "What if I made the wrong choice?" Without reaching a stable conclusion. The brain is active, but the problem remains open. Researchers often describe the resting brain as belonging to several interacting networks rather than becoming completely inactive. One of these is commonly known as the default mode network. This network becomes especially involved when attention is not focused strongly on the outside world. It helps with remembering personal experiences, imagining the future, understanding social situations, and creating a sense of personal identity. It allows the mind to travel through time. You can sit in one quiet room while mentally returning to a conversation from years ago, or visiting a future that has not yet happened. This ability is extraordinary. It allows human beings to learn from memory, prepare for challenges, imagine other people's feelings, and create stories about their lives. But at night, when external stimulation becomes weaker, the same ability may feel unusually strong. During the day, the mind is surrounded by signals. There are faces, voices, movement, work, music, messages, and practical tasks. Attention is repeatedly pulled outward. At bedtime, many of those signals disappear. The room darkens. the body becomes still. There may be nothing urgent to look at, listen to, or solve, and so attention turns inward. Thoughts that were hidden beneath the activity of the day become easier to notice. This does not necessarily mean the thoughts suddenly became more powerful. They may simply have become more visible. It is a little like hearing a distant clock, only after the other sounds in the house have faded. The clock was always there. The quiet made it noticeable. Fatigue can also change the way thoughts feel. Late in the evening, the mental systems used for flexible attention and emotional regulation may be less effective than they were earlier in the day. Small concerns can therefore feel more important at night. A message that seemed neutral in the afternoon may appear uncertain after midnight. A minor mistake may begin to feel like evidence of something much larger. The facts have not changed. The tired mind is simply working with fewer resources. Overthinking also often contains an attempt to gain control. The future is uncertain, and uncertainty can be uncomfortable. The mind may respond by simulating many possibilities. What if this happens? What if that happens? What would I say? What should I have said? By rehearsing every possible outcome, the brain may be trying to create safety. But imagination has no natural finishing point. For every possible future, another future can be created. For every answer, another question can appear. The mind can continue building branches long after the original decision has disappeared beneath them. This is why overthinking may feel like movement without distance. There is effort, but no arrival. There is mental activity, but very little new information. And yet, even this repetitive thinking has a reason. The brain is not trying to disturb you. It is trying, in its own imperfect way, to protect you from uncertainty, rejection, regret, and surprise. It is checking the path again. It is reviewing the map. It is looking for a danger that may not exist. Understanding this can soften the experience. A repeating thought does not always need to be solved immediately. Sometimes it is only a tired prediction system continuing its work in a quiet room. The thought may return, but you do not have to follow it all the way. It can pass like a train seen from a distant window. It appears. It moves through the night, and slowly, without needing an answer, it travels out of view. One reason overthinking can feel so persistent is that the brain does not treat every thought as equal. Some thoughts arrive and pass quickly. Others seem to carry a small signal of importance. They may be connected to uncertainty, embarrassment, responsibility, or the possibility of loss. When this happens, attention can become attached to them. The thought is not necessarily the largest or most dangerous thing in your life. It is simply the thought the brain has marked as unfinished. Attention is one of the nervous system's limited resources. At any moment, countless sensations are available. The weight of a blanket, the temperature of the air, a distant sound, the rhythm of breathing, the position of the hands. Most of these signals remain in the background. The brain selects a small number and brings them forward. This selection process is useful. Without it, consciousness would be flooded by every detail at once. But attention can also become narrow. When a concern is repeatedly selected, it begins to feel more significant simply because it is being observed so often. The mind notices the thought. Then it notices that it noticed the thought. Soon, the thought seems to occupy the entire mental landscape. This can create a quiet feedback loop. A worry attracts attention. Attention makes the worry feel important. Its apparent importance attracts even more attention. The loop may continue even when the original problem has not changed. This is one reason people often find that trying forcefully not to think about something can make it return more frequently. To avoid a thought, the mind must keep checking whether the thought is present. That checking process quietly reactivates it. Imagine being told not to picture a bright blue lantern. For a moment, the mind must create some version of the lantern in order to know what it is supposed to avoid. The same process can happen with worries. Do not think about tomorrow. Do not replay that conversation. Do not imagine the worst outcome. Each instruction contains the very image it is trying to remove. This does not mean unwanted thoughts are uncontrollable. It means that direct mental resistance is often less effective than it seems. Thoughts tend to lose energy more naturally when they are allowed to exist without being treated as urgent instructions. The brain is also sensitive to emotional memory. Events linked to strong feelings are often remembered more clearly than ordinary events. This is not an accident. Emotion acts partly as a marker, telling the brain that an experience may contain important information. A warm reunion, a sudden mistake, an awkward silence, or a frightening surprise may all become easier to recall because they mattered to the nervous system at the time. Later, however, the emotional marker can remain even when the event is no longer useful. A conversation may replay not because the mind expects to change the past, but because the memory was stored with a sense of importance. The brain returns to it as though there is still something to learn. Sometimes there is. Reviewing an experience can help a person recognize a pattern, understand another person's reaction, or choose a different response in the future. But repeated review can slowly shift away from learning. The mind begins searching for perfect certainty about what another person meant, what would have happened under different conditions, or whether one exact sentence caused everything that followed. These questions may not have complete answers. Human interactions contain tone, timing, memory, expectation, and misunderstanding. They cannot always be reduced to a single explanation, yet the analytical mind may continue trying. It treats the memory like a puzzle with one missing piece. If the correct piece can be found, perhaps the discomfort will disappear. But some discomfort comes not from missing information, but from the fact that the past cannot be reopened. The mind can revisit it. It cannot enter it again. This difference can be difficult to accept, especially for a brain designed to learn from error. Mistakes are powerful teachers. When something goes wrong, the nervous system often increases attention, so the same result can be avoided later. This tendency has obvious value. An animal that remembers where danger appeared is more likely to survive. A person who remembers an error at work may become more careful next time. But the learning system does not always know when enough review has occurred. It may continue presenting the memory, hoping to extract one final lesson. This is why regret often contains both pain and protection. The painful part looks backward, the protective part looks forward. It is trying to make sure the same event never happens again. The difficulty is that complete protection is impossible. No amount of thinking can remove all uncertainty from future choices. Every decision is made with limited information. Even wise choices can produce unexpected results. Even poor choices can sometimes lead somewhere useful. The mind prefers clean patterns, but life often remains complicated. Overthinking can become stronger when responsibility feels high. The more deeply a person cares about an outcome, the more possibilities the mind may examine. A parent may replay a small decision because the child matters so much. A worker may review a message because their reputation matters. A friend may analyze a pause in conversation because the relationship matters. The repetition is often connected to care. This does not make the process comfortable, but it can make it more understandable. The mind is not always circling because something is wrong. Sometimes it circles because something is valued. There is another subtle feature of attention that can intensify this experience. The brain naturally looks for confirmation. Once a possibility has been imagined, attention may begin noticing details that seem to support it. If the thought is, "Perhaps they are upset with me," a delayed reply may suddenly feel meaningful. A short sentence may appear cold. A neutral expression may seem distant. Other explanations become less visible. The person may be busy. The message may have been written quickly. The expression may have had nothing to do with you. But when attention is organized around one interpretation, matching evidence feels brighter. This is not dishonesty. It is a normal shortcut used by the mind. The brain cannot examine every explanation with equal depth, so it often follows the path that already feels active. At night, that path can become especially convincing. There are fewer new signals to interrupt it. The imagined explanation repeats until familiarity begins to resemble truth. But familiarity is not proof. A thought can feel persuasive because it has been rehearsed many times. It can feel important because attention has returned to it. It can feel urgent because the body is tired. None of these sensations necessarily tell us whether the thought is accurate. They tell us only that the mind is engaged, and engagement can soften. Attention can widen again. The room is still present. A blanket still has weight. The air still moves quietly in and out. A thought may remain somewhere in the background, but it does not have to fill the entire sky. It can become one small light among many. Not erased, not defeated. Simply no longer. The only thing the mind can see. Overthinking is not only a pattern of thought, it is also a pattern of body signals. A person may be lying still in a quiet room, while the nervous system behaves as though something important is about to happen. The heart may beat a little faster. The jaw may tighten. The shoulders may lift. Breathing may become slightly shallower. These changes can be so subtle that they are noticed only after they have continued for some time. The body and mind are constantly exchanging information. A worried thought can change the body. Then the changed body can make the thought feel more convincing. If the chest feels tense, the mind may assume there must be a serious reason for the tension. It begins searching for an explanation. Perhaps the meeting tomorrow will go badly. Perhaps the message sounded wrong. Perhaps something important has been forgotten. The body's alertness becomes evidence in the mind's story, even when the alertness began with nothing more than fatigue and imagination. This creates another loop. A thought produces tension. Tension makes the thought seem dangerous. The sense of danger produces more thought. The nervous system is designed to respond quickly to possible threats. It does not always wait for certainty. From a survival perspective, reacting too early can be safer than reacting too late. A sound in the grass might be only wind, but for an animal living in a dangerous environment, briefly preparing to escape would have carried a smaller cost than ignoring a real predator. The modern human brain still contains versions of these ancient protective systems. Today, The possible threat may not be a movement in the grass. It may be a social misunderstanding, an uncertain medical appointment, a financial decision, or a task that feels incomplete. These situations are not physically present in the room, but the body can still respond to their mental images. The nervous system reacts not only to what is happening, it can also react to what is remembered, predicted, or imagined. This is why a person can feel embarrassed while recalling an event from 10 years ago. The room is safe, the moment is over, yet the body briefly recreates part of the original response. A future event can have a similar effect. The mind imagines walking into a difficult conversation, and the body begins preparing as though the conversation has already started. This ability to rehearse the future is useful. Athletes imagine movements, musicians mentally practice performances, people prepare important sentences before speaking. Mental simulation can improve confidence and readiness. But when simulation becomes repetitive and threatening, the body may spend long periods preparing for events that never arrive. The difference between planning and overthinking is not always found in the subject. Both may involve tomorrow. Both may involve possible problems. The difference often lies in whether the thinking creates a useful response. Planning tends to become specific. What needs to be done? When will it be done? What information is missing? What is the next small action? Overthinking often remains broad and emotional. What if everything goes wrong? What if I cannot handle it? What if this feeling means something terrible? These questions produce many images, but few instructions. The mind remains busy, while the body remains prepared. One of the most important systems involved in this preparation is the autonomic nervous system. It helps regulate processes that usually happen without deliberate control, such as heart rate, digestion, sweating, and the widening or narrowing of blood vessels. Part of this system supports alertness and action. Another part supports rest, recovery, and digestion. These are sometimes described too simply as an on switch and an off switch. In reality, the nervous system is always adjusting. It responds to posture, breathing, temperature, emotion, movement, hunger, light, and many other signals. The goal is not to remove all alertness. A healthy nervous system needs flexibility. It should be able to increase energy when action is required and settle when the situation becomes safe again. Overthinking can make this settling process slower. The brain continues presenting possible problems, and the body continues receiving them as reasons to remain ready. This may be why physical comfort can sometimes influence mental activity more than expected. A warm blanket, a supported neck, a slower breath, or the feeling of a steady surface beneath the body sends information upward. These sensations do not solve the problem being considered. They communicate something different. They tell the nervous system what the present moment feels like. The imagined future may be uncertain. The body, however, is here. Breathing is happening here. The bed is supporting weight here. The distant sound belongs to this room, not to tomorrow. Bringing attention to physical sensation is not a way of pretending that concerns do not matter. It is a way of giving the brain additional evidence. The thought says that something may happen. The body can notice that nothing is happening right now. Both pieces of information can exist together. This is also why slow breathing is often associated with calm. Breathing is unusual because it is both automatic and partly voluntary. It continues without instruction, yet it can also be gently changed. A slower, more comfortable breathing rhythm can influence the signals traveling between the body and brain. There is no need to force an unusually deep breath. Very large breaths can sometimes feel uncomfortable or create more awareness of breathing. The aim is simply ease, a soft inhale, slightly longer exhale, a pause that arrives naturally. Longer exhalation is often linked with the body's settling responses, partly because heart rate normally changes slightly across the breathing cycle. During inhalation, it may increase a little. During exhalation, it may decrease. These tiny variations are normal. They are part of the continuous conversation between breathing, circulation, and the nervous system. Overthinking often gives the impression that calm must begin with the correct thought. Find the perfect explanation, and then the body will relax. But sometimes the direction can be reversed. The body can become a little more comfortable first. The mind may follow later. The jaw can loosen before the question is answered. The shoulders can lower while uncertainty remains. The hands can become heavy even though tomorrow is still unknown. This does not remove responsibility. It simply separates preparation from constant tension. A person can care about the future without physically rehearsing it throughout the night. The brain may continue offering thoughts for a while. That is all right. It has been repeating the pattern because repetition once seemed protective. It may need time to notice that the conditions have changed. No immediate action is required. No conversation is taking place. No decision has to be completed in this exact moment. The body can be the first part of the system to step away. Breathing becomes quieter. The face softens. The space between thoughts becomes slightly wider. And in those small spaces, the nervous system begins receiving a different message. Not that every problem has been solved, only that, for now, the present moment is safe enough for rest. Night changes more than the amount of light around us. It also changes the conditions in which the mind is working. Across the day, the brain gradually builds pressure for sleep. This process is partly connected to substances that accumulate while we remain awake and gradually increase the feeling of tiredness. At the same time, the body's internal clock helps organize periods of alertness and rest. These two systems interact. They influence when the eyes become heavy, when attention feels sharp, and when mental effort begins to require more energy. By late evening, a person may still be awake enough to think, but not equally able to think in every way. The mind may continue producing ideas while becoming less flexible in how it handles them. This can help explain a familiar experience. A problem seems impossible at night. After sleep, the same problem appears smaller, clearer, or simply less urgent. The problem may not have changed. The brain approaching it has changed. Flexible thinking requires the ability to move between perspectives. A person must be able to consider one interpretation, release it, and examine another. Perhaps the delayed reply means disappointment, or perhaps it means tiredness. Perhaps the mistake was serious, or perhaps it was ordinary and repairable. When the brain is well rested, it may shift between these possibilities more easily. When tired, it can become mentally sticky. The first explanation that feels emotionally important may remain in place. This is especially relevant to overthinking, because repetitive thought depends partly on difficulty disengaging. The mind does not merely produce a concern, it has trouble leaving it. A thought may therefore feel deeper at night when it is actually only more difficult to replace. The same sentence repeats because the mind has fewer competing pathways available. Tiredness can also influence how people interpret ambiguity. Much of daily life is uncertain. A facial expression can have many meanings. A brief message can sound different depending on mood. A pause in conversation might signal discomfort, distraction, or nothing at all. The brain must constantly make guesses from incomplete information. When calm and rested, it may tolerate several explanations. When tired and emotionally activated, it may choose the explanation most closely connected to danger or rejection. This does not mean the mind becomes irrational after sunset. It means its balance of attention may shift. Potential problems become easier to see. Reassuring details become harder to hold. A single awkward moment appears bright, while 100 ordinary moments fade into the background. Overthinking can then begin to rewrite the emotional proportions of the day. One uncomfortable exchange occupies 10 minutes in reality and several hours in memory. One uncertain decision becomes the center of the night. This effect is strengthened by the quiet environment around bedtime. During daylight, thoughts are tested against the world. A person worries about a meeting, then speaks to a colleague. They wonder whether a friend is upset, then receive another message. They fear a task is impossible, then complete the first part. Reality provides new information. At night, reality becomes less available. The meeting cannot happen yet. The message may not arrive. The office is closed. The person involved may be asleep. The mind continues asking questions, but the environment cannot answer them. This creates a situation in which imagination produces evidence for imagination. The brain predicts a negative outcome. Then it responds emotionally to the predicted outcome. That emotional response makes the prediction feel more believable. The future begins to seem as though it has already occurred, but a vividly imagined event is still an imagined event. The body may react to it. The mind may rehearse it. The heart may prepare for it. Yet the event remains only one possibility among many. Nighttime thinking often becomes more difficult because possibilities lose their labels. A mental image of failure no longer feels like one scenario. It begins to feel like a preview. A remembered expression no longer feels uncertain. It begins to feel like proof. This is why it can be helpful to notice the difference between a fact and a prediction. A fact might be that someone has not replied. A prediction might be that they are angry. A fact might be that tomorrow contains an important task. A prediction might be that the task will go badly. A fact might be that a mistake was made. A prediction might be that the mistake will define everything that follows. The mind often blends these categories together. Overthinking separates them only with difficulty. It moves so quickly from observation to interpretation that the transition becomes invisible. The brain sees an empty space and fills it. This ability is normally useful. Human beings constantly make sense of incomplete patterns. A few sounds become a melody. A few lines become a familiar shape. A few social clues become an understanding of another person's mood. But the pattern-making brain can sometimes complete an uncertain situation with the most emotionally powerful ending rather than the most accurate one. The resulting story may feel complete. That feeling of completion can be misleading. Confidence and accuracy are not the same. A thought can feel certain because it has been repeated. It can feel detailed because it has been imagined vividly. It can feel true because it produces a strong emotion. None of these qualities guarantee that it describes reality. Sleep creates a natural interruption in this process. It does not answer every question, but it changes the conditions under which the question is examined. During sleep, the brain continues important forms of activity. Memories are reorganized. Recent experiences are integrated with older knowledge. Emotional reactions may be processed differently than they are during active waking thought. The sleeping brain is not simply switched off. It enters changing states, each with its own patterns of activity by morning. An experience may remain important while feeling less immediate. The emotional edge may soften enough for new interpretations to appear. This is one reason delaying a decision until after rest can sometimes be wise. Not every decision can wait, but many nighttime questions are not true emergencies. They only feel urgent because the mind is tired and the room is quiet. Urgency is a sensation. It is not always an instruction. A thought may insist that it must be solved now. Yet the brain that will meet the problem tomorrow may have more energy, more perspective, and more access to the outside world. Morning can bring information that imagination cannot produce. A reply may arrive. A conversation may become possible. A task may begin. The uncertain future becomes a present moment with real details. For now, the mind does not need to complete tomorrow in advance. It can leave some spaces empty. It can allow a question to remain a question. The night does not require a final answer. It only asks the body to remain still long enough for sleep to arrive. Thoughts may continue crossing the mind like clouds crossing moonlight. Some will appear bright. Some will briefly cover the sky. But the sky does not need to push them away. It remains open while they move. And slowly, as tiredness deepens, the mind may discover that an unfinished thought can be carried into morning without being carried through every moment of the night. Many episodes of overthinking take the form of an invisible conversation. The room is silent, yet the mind is speaking. It replays what another person said, changes the tone, rearranges the words, and invents replies that were never given. Sometimes the conversation belongs to the past. Sometimes it is a rehearsal for tomorrow. Sometimes it is an exchange that may never happen at all. Human beings are deeply social creatures, and much of the brain is devoted to understanding other minds. We notice expressions, pauses, gestures, and small changes in voice. From these incomplete signals, we try to infer intentions. Was that person disappointed? Did they misunderstand? Was the silence meaningful? Did I say too much? These questions arise because other people's thoughts are never directly available to us. We can observe behavior, but we cannot open another person's mind and inspect the explanation inside. The brain must estimate. Most of the time, these estimates are good enough for ordinary life. A warm expression suggests welcome. A hurried voice suggests distraction. A familiar pattern of behavior helps us understand what someone may need. But social information is rarely perfectly clear. The same brief message may sound friendly to one reader and distant to another. A quiet person may be upset, tired, thoughtful, or simply comfortable with silence. When the mind lacks certainty, it may begin constructing possible meanings. One interpretation appears, then another. The brain compares them, trying to find the version that best explains every detail. This process is connected to a valuable human capacity, sometimes called mentalizing. The ability to imagine what another person might be thinking or feeling. Mentalizing helps people cooperate, care for one another, anticipate reactions, and repair misunderstandings. It is part of empathy. It allows a person to notice that an action may look different from someone else's point of view. Yet the same ability can become tiring when it continues without new information. The mind starts trying to read details that cannot be read. A pause becomes a puzzle. A punctuation mark becomes evidence. a memory of someone's face is examined again and again, even though memory is not a perfect recording. When people remember an event, the brain does not simply play back an untouched file. Memory is reconstructed. Important features remain, but small details may shift. Later emotions, expectations, and new information can influence how the event is experienced when it returns. This means that a conversation replayed many times may gradually become less like the original moment and more like the mind's current interpretation of it. A neutral expression may appear colder. A short pause may seem longer. The exact words may remain, while the remembered tone changes. The mind may then react to the reconstructed version as though it were a precise record. This is one reason repeated analysis does not always bring greater accuracy. More thinking can sometimes add understanding, but it can also add layers. Each return to the event may bring a new imagined meaning until the memory is surrounded by explanations that were not present at the time. Overthinking often contains imagined alternatives as well. What should I have said? What if I had answered differently? Would everything have changed if I had waited one more moment? The ability to imagine alternative outcomes is known as counterfactual thinking. It helps people learn. By comparing what happened with what might have happened, the brain can adjust future behavior. If a person misses a train because they left too late, imagining an earlier departure may help them plan more effectively next time. Counterfactual thought becomes less useful when it focuses on details that could not reasonably have been predicted or controlled. Life contains too many interacting causes for one moment to explain everything. A different sentence might have changed the conversation, or it might not have. Another person may have been carrying private worries, physical tiredness, or expectations that were invisible. The outcome may have depended on timing, history, coincidence, and countless small conditions. The mind often prefers the idea that one perfect action could have guaranteed the desired result. This idea creates an illusion of control. It can feel painful because it places the entire past in the hands of one decision. But it may also feel safer than accepting how many parts of life cannot be controlled. If one sentence caused everything, then perhaps a better sentence could prevent every future disappointment. The social world does not work with such precision. People misunderstand each other even when they speak carefully. Good intentions may be expressed awkwardly. Kind messages may arrive at the wrong time. Two people can remember the same conversation differently without either person deliberately changing the truth. Communication is not a flawless transfer of thought. It is an exchange of signals between two complicated nervous systems. Each person brings a different history. Each interprets words through private memories and expectations. This uncertainty can make the social mind work very hard. It rehearses explanations. It prepares defenses. It imagines future questions and produces several possible answers. These rehearsals may feel necessary, especially before a difficult conversation. A small amount of preparation can be useful. It may help a person identify what matters, speak more clearly, or listen more patiently. But beyond a certain point, rehearsal begins to lose contact with the real event. The imagined person responds in ways created by the same mind that is trying to prepare. Every objection, silence, and reaction comes from one source. The rehearsal may become detailed, but it is still missing the other person. Real conversations contain surprises. Someone may be kinder than expected. They may explain something the mind never considered. They may not remember the moment that has been replaying for hours. They may bring their own uncertainty and their own invisible rehearsals. Recognizing this does not mean social concerns should be ignored. It means the mind can acknowledge the limits of what it knows. Perhaps the message was misunderstood. Perhaps it was not. Perhaps the conversation tomorrow will be uncomfortable. Perhaps it will bring relief. At night, both possibilities can remain open. There is no need to choose the darkest interpretation simply because it feels vivid. The mind may continue composing sentences for a while. It may correct an old reply or prepare a new one. These inner conversations can be allowed to soften without being completed. The exact words do not have to be found tonight. A real conversation, when it comes, will have its own rhythm. There will be another voice. There will be new information. There will be pauses that belong to the present rather than to imagination. For now, the imagined room can empty. The rehearsed voices can become quieter. The mind does not need to speak for everyone. It can return to one simple fact. Here, in this moment, no conversation is required. Nothing must be defended. Nothing must be perfectly explained. The silence around you is not an awkward pause waiting to be filled. It is simply the silence of the night, and it may remain unfinished, peaceful, and entirely enough. Overthinking often grows around decisions. Some decisions are large. Others are so small that they seem as though they should require almost no effort. Which message should be sent? Which task should be completed first? Should the invitation be accepted? Should the plan be changed? Should one more piece of information be gathered before choosing? The mind may treat a decision as though there is one perfectly correct path hidden among many imperfect ones. If enough time is spent comparing, perhaps that path can be found. But many real decisions do not contain a single answer that is clearly best. They contain trade-offs. One choice may offer comfort but less opportunity. Another may offer possibility but more uncertainty. One path may protect time. Another may protect a relationship. One option may feel right now and different later. The difficulty is not always a lack of intelligence or preparation. Sometimes the difficulty is that several values matter at once. The brain prefers decisions with clear rules. If one object is heavier, one distance is shorter, or one number is larger, the comparison can be completed. Human choices are often more complicated. How much is peace worth compared with progress? How much certainty is enough? Which future feeling should be given the greatest weight? There is no instrument that can measure these questions precisely. The mind must estimate. This is where overthinking may begin. It repeatedly examines the same options, hoping that continued analysis will remove the trade-off. But analysis cannot always make competing values agree. At some point, choosing means accepting that something will remain uncertain or unavailable. Every path excludes another path. Even a good decision closes the door on alternatives that might also have been good. The mind can find this uncomfortable. It imagines the unchosen possibilities and compares them with the imperfect reality of the chosen one. An imagined path has a special advantage. It has not yet encountered inconvenience, delay, or disappointment. Because it exists only in thought, it can remain smooth. The unchosen job has no difficult mornings. The city not visited contains no bad weather. The words not spoken are always perfectly timed. Reality must carry details. Imagination does not. This can make the road not taken appear unusually bright. Psychologists sometimes describe a tendency to feel the pain of losses more strongly than the pleasure of equivalent gains. The possibility of losing an opportunity, making the wrong choice, or later feeling regret, may therefore attract great attention. The mind tries to prevent this future discomfort by thinking longer. It hopes to choose in a way that makes regret impossible. But regret cannot be fully designed out of life. Even careful choices can lead to difficult outcomes. And even when an outcome is good, the mind may still wonder what another choice would have produced. This does not prove the decision was wrong. It shows that the imagination is capable of creating alternatives. Perfectionism can strengthen this process. Perfectionism is not always the desire to make something excellent. Healthy care can support patience, skill, and thoughtful work. The difficulty begins when anything less than the ideal feels unsafe, unacceptable, or personally revealing. A message must contain exactly the right tone. A plan must account for every possible problem. A decision must produce no disappointment. A task must be completed in a way that prevents criticism from every direction. These standards may look like ambition, but they often contain an attempt to avoid uncertainty. If the work is flawless, perhaps no one can reject it. If the decision is perfect, perhaps nothing painful can follow. If every possibility is examined, perhaps surprise can be prevented. But perfection is not a normal condition in complex human life. Most tasks are completed with limited time, incomplete information, and changing circumstances. A good plan may still need adjustment. A thoughtful message may still be misunderstood. A careful person may still overlook something. This is not evidence of failure. It is evidence that the world contains more variables than one mind can control. Overthinking sometimes mistakes more analysis for more safety. At first, gathering information helps. A person learns the important facts, compares practical options, and notices possible consequences. Then a quiet threshold is crossed. New information no longer changes the decision very much. It only produces additional details to compare. One review becomes 3. 3 become 10. The mind searches not for useful knowledge, but for a feeling of complete certainty. That feeling may never arrive. Certainty is emotional as well as intellectual. A person can understand an option clearly and still feel uneasy. The mind may interpret uneasiness as proof that more thinking is needed. But discomfort does not always mean information is missing. Sometimes it means the choice matters. Sometimes it means no option is completely risk-free. Sometimes it means the future has not happened yet. A decision can be reasonable without feeling perfectly calm. Courage often appears not when uncertainty disappears, but when action becomes possible while uncertainty remains. This does not require dramatic confidence. It may be as simple as choosing the next small step. Instead of solving the entire future, the mind can identify what belongs to the present. An application can be prepared. A question can be asked. A date can be chosen. A draft can be saved and reviewed tomorrow. Some decisions are reversible. Some can be tested gradually. Some appear permanent only because the tired mind is viewing them all at once. Breaking a choice into smaller stages reduces the number of imagined years that must be carried in one moment. The brain often overestimates the need to predict exactly how a future self will feel. But future feelings are difficult to forecast. People adapt. Preferences change. New information appears. A path that seems uncertain may become familiar. A disappointment that seems unbearable may become manageable. The future person who meets the outcome will not be identical to the person imagining it tonight. They will have more experience. They may have more support. They will be standing inside the real situation rather than looking at a shadow of it from far away. The present mind does not need to prepare every response for that future person. It can leave them some room. Overthinking says that the whole path must be visible before the first step is taken. Life rarely offers that kind of view. Most paths reveal themselves gradually. A bend in the road hides what comes next, not because danger is waiting, but because roads are shaped by the land. You can know the direction without seeing every stone. You can move carefully without predicting every turn. And at night, even movement may not be necessary. A decision can rest beside you without being completed. The options can remain where they are. Nothing will disappear because the mind stops comparing for a few hours. The future does not need to be chosen repeatedly. For now, the untraveled paths can grow quiet. Each one can fade into the same gentle darkness beyond the window. There is no perfect road glowing somewhere in the night. There is only the next moment, and this moment asks for no decision at all. Sometimes the most tiring part of overthinking is not the original thought. It is the thought about the thought. A concern appears. Then the mind asks why it appeared. Why am I still thinking about this? What does it say about me? Why can everyone else let things go? What if the fact that I am worried means the problem is truly serious? The first thought may be small. The second layer gives it weight. This ability to observe our own thinking is called metacognition. It is one of the mind's most useful capacities. Metacognition allows a person to notice confusion, recognize a mistake, evaluate a strategy, or realize that attention has wandered. It helps students understand whether they have actually learned something. It helps workers review their decisions. It helps people recognize emotional patterns and choose a different response. The mind can look at its own activity and ask whether that activity is helpful. But self-observation can become uncomfortable when it turns into constant monitoring. A person notices a thought and immediately begins measuring it. Is it normal? Is it dangerous? Should it have disappeared already? The thought is no longer simply passing through awareness. It has become an object under inspection. This inspection can make it feel unusually important. Imagine noticing a faint sound in a quiet house. At first, it is only a sound, but if you listen closely, wondering whether it means something, every small variation becomes more noticeable. The sound may not have grown louder. Attention has grown narrower. The same thing can happen internally. The more closely the mind checks whether a thought is still present, the more often it finds it. This can create the feeling of being trapped inside one's own awareness. The person is not only thinking, they are watching themselves think, judging the thinking, and waiting for it to stop. Waiting can make time feel slower. A thought that might naturally fade in a few moments may feel endless when every moment is counted. This is particularly common with thoughts that seem unwanted or out of character. The mind may produce strange, random, exaggerated, or uncomfortable ideas. This is a normal feature of imagination. The brain combines memories, language, fears, images, and possibilities in ways that are not always deliberate. A thought can appear without representing a wish, a plan, or a belief. Yet people often assume that thoughts must reveal something important about the person having them. If I imagined it, perhaps I wanted it. If I worried about it, perhaps it is likely. If the thought returned, perhaps it contains a hidden truth. These conclusions give ordinary mental events more meaning than they necessarily deserve. The brain produces many thoughts precisely because it is a prediction system. It explores possibilities. Some are useful, some are unlikely, some are absurd. Some arrive only because one word, image, or memory activated another. Consciousness receives the result, but not always the full explanation of how it was produced. A thought may therefore feel mysterious even when it began through a simple association. A smell brings back a place. Place brings back a person. The person brings back an old conversation. The conversation brings back a question. Within seconds, the mind has traveled years without choosing the route. Overthinking may begin when the person tries to reconstruct every step and assign a reason to the journey. But not every mental journey has a message. Sometimes one memory simply touched another. Thoughts can also feel powerful because language makes them sound like statements. The mind says, something will go wrong. The sentence arrives in the same grammatical form as a fact. It does not automatically include the words. Here is one anxious possibility created by a tired predictive system. It presents the idea directly. Because inner speech sounds certain, the content may be mistaken for knowledge, yet the mind can say something clearly without knowing whether it is true. It can produce a confident sentence from incomplete evidence. It can also produce two opposite sentences within a short period. Should speak. I should stay quiet. I should change the plan. I should not make a sudden decision. Both can feel convincing while active. This shows that the felt authority of a thought is not the same as its accuracy. A useful distinction can be made between having a thought and agreeing with it. The thought, I will fail, may appear. That is a mental event. Believing that failure is certain is another step. Preparing for failure as though it has already occurred is another. The steps can happen so quickly that they seem like one movement. But they are not identical. A thought can be present without being accepted as a final description of reality. It can be noticed as a sentence produced by the mind. Nothing more has to happen immediately. This is sometimes described as creating distance from thought. Distance does not mean pushing the thought away. It means seeing its shape. Instead of tomorrow will be a disaster, the experience can be recognized as, my mind is producing the prediction that tomorrow will be a disaster. The added words do not prove the prediction wrong. They simply restore its correct category. It is a prediction, not an event, not a memory, not a fact from the future. This small distinction can change the relationship between awareness and language. The thought may still feel unpleasant, it may still return, but it becomes something the mind is doing rather than something the world has already confirmed. Overthinking often becomes stronger when people believe they must feel calm before they can rest. They monitor the mind for signs of peace. Is the worry gone? Am I relaxed yet? Why am I still awake? Each question activates another round of checking. Sleep, however, is not usually produced by inspecting whether sleep has arrived. It emerges when wakeful effort gradually decreases. The same may be true of mental quiet. Quiet is not always the complete absence of thought. It can be the absence of struggle with thought. A room can be peaceful while rain touches the window. A lake can be calm while small ripples cross its surface. A night sky can remain vast while clouds move through it. The mind does not need to become perfectly empty. It only needs to stop treating every passing event as a problem requiring immediate management. Even the thought, I am overthinking, can be allowed to become lighter. It does not have to begin an investigation. It can be a simple observation. The mind is active tonight. The mind is repeating something. The mind is trying to find certainty. These statements contain less judgment. They describe movement without turning movement into failure. There is no need to become the perfect observer of your own thoughts. There is no correct way to watch them pass. Some may remain close. Some may disappear before they are fully noticed. Some may return several times, like a bird circling the same quiet field before landing. Their return does not mean you have done anything wrong. It means the brain is following a familiar path. Paths become familiar through repetition. And slowly, through different kinds of repetition, they can become less automatic. For tonight, nothing needs to be retrained. Nothing needs to be mastered. The mind can think, and another part of awareness can remain still. The sentences may continue for a while. Behind them, there is silence. Not a silence that must be created, a silence that was already there, waiting beneath the words. Overthinking often gives memory the appearance of a perfect archive. The mind returns to an event and feels as though it is examining a clear record of what happened. A face appears, a sentence is heard again. The room seems to return with its familiar light, its furniture, and its small pauses. Because the memory feels vivid, it may seem complete, but memory is not a fixed recording stored untouched inside the brain. It is a living reconstruction. When an experience is first remembered, different parts of it may be represented across several systems. There may be visual details, sounds, emotions, bodily sensations, meanings, and knowledge about what happened before and after. Later, when the event is recalled, the brain brings some of these elements together again. The reconstruction can be remarkably useful. It allows the past to guide present choices, but it does not always recreate every detail with equal accuracy. Some features fade, others become stronger. Gaps may be quietly filled using expectation, general knowledge, or information learned later. This usually happens without any intention to change the truth. The brain is not trying to create a false story. It is trying to form a meaningful one. Human memory often preserves the shape of an experience more easily than every precise detail. A person may remember that a conversation felt uncomfortable while remaining uncertain about the exact order of the words. They may remember a strong expression, but not what happened immediately before it. They may know that they felt excluded without being able to identify the moment when that feeling began. Overthinking may respond to these gaps by examining the memory more intensely. What exactly was the tone? How long was the pause? Did the other person look away before or after the question? The mind searches for details as though they are hidden somewhere and can be recovered through enough effort. Sometimes, a forgotten detail does return. More often, repeated searching produces greater confidence without necessarily producing greater accuracy. Familiarity can create the sensation of truth. The more often a memory is replayed, the easier it becomes to retrieve. That ease may be interpreted as evidence that the memory is precise, but ease of retrieval shows that a mental pathway has been practiced. It does not guarantee that every part of the reconstruction matches the original event. This is especially important when emotion is involved. The feeling present during recall can influence which parts of the past become most available. When a person feels calm, they may remember evidence that a situation was complicated and temporary. When they feel worried, the same event may appear more threatening. Details connected to rejection, danger, or error become brighter. Details connected to kindness, context, or repair may become harder to reach. This does not mean either version is entirely invented. It means memory is being viewed through the conditions of the present nervous system. The same landscape looks different in sunlight, mist, and moonlight. The hills remain, but some shapes become clearer, while others disappear into shadow. Overthinking may treat the shadowed version as the final one. It assumes that because the memory feels painful now, the event must always have contained exactly that meaning. But meaning can change over time. An experience once seen as failure may later become a turning point. A rejection may become evidence of incompatibility rather than personal inadequacy. An awkward moment may eventually seem ordinary. A decision once judged harshly may become understandable when the limits of the situation are remembered. The past itself does not change. The frame around it can. This is one reason wisdom often arrives later than certainty. Certainty wants a quick conclusion. Who was wrong? What did the moment prove? Which detail explains everything? Wisdom is more willing to hold several truths together. A person may have made a mistake and still deserve compassion. Another person may have caused pain without fully understanding it. A decision may have had consequences and still have been reasonable with the information available at the time. Human events are rarely made from one cause. They emerge from temperament, timing, fatigue, history, expectation, circumstance, and chance. Overthinking often searches for a single key. If the key can be found, perhaps the whole event will become simple, but many memories are not locked rooms. They are landscapes. They contain several paths, uncertain boundaries, and details that look different depending on where the observer stands. The mind may also judge an earlier self using knowledge that arrived later. From the present, the outcome is visible. The warning signs seem obvious. The better choice appears clear, but the person living through the original moment did not possess the present view. They knew only what was available then. This difference is sometimes hidden by hindsight. Once an outcome is known, the events leading toward it can appear more predictable than they actually were. The mind rearranges the past into a smooth line. It forgets how many other outcomes once seemed possible. This can create unnecessary blame. How could I not have known? Why did I not see it? Why did I choose that? The answer may simply be that the future was still the future. The information was incomplete. The signals were mixed. The person making the choice was tired, hopeful, inexperienced, distracted, or doing the best they could with several competing needs. Compassion for a past self does not require declaring every action correct. It means remembering the conditions under which the action occurred. Learning becomes easier when the past is examined without turning it into a courtroom. A courtroom seeks a verdict. Learning seeks understanding. A verdict tries to close the case. Understanding may remain open, detailed, and imperfect. The mind can notice what it would do differently now. It can recognize what was outside its control. It can carry forward one useful lesson without carrying the entire emotional weight of the event. Not every memory needs to be resolved completely. Some become quieter through time rather than explanation. The brain revisits them less often. New experiences surround them. The one central event becomes one part of a much larger personal history. At night, however, an old memory can temporarily feel like the whole story. The dark room removes the wider landscape. Only one scene remains illuminated, but the rest of life has not disappeared. There are mornings the memory does not enter. There are conversations unrelated to it. There are places, faces, skills, ordinary meals, quiet walks, and future moments that have not yet become memories. The mind may be holding one page very close to the eyes. That does not make it the entire book. The page can remain unfinished. Some words may stay uncertain. Some meanings may continue changing. There is no need to restore the past with perfect accuracy tonight. The memory has already carried what it could into the present. Whatever lesson remains useful can wait until daylight. For now, the scene may lose its sharp edges. The voices can become distant. The room inside the memory can grow dim. And the mind can allow the past to return to where it belongs, not erased, not denied, simply placed behind the present moment while the quiet night continues forward. Overthinking often feels endless because the mind is trying to hold too many unfinished ideas at once. One concern remains open, then another arrives. A task needs to be remembered. A message still needs a reply. A decision has not been made. A small mistake is waiting to be corrected. Each item may be manageable on its own. Together, they create the feeling of mental crowding. The brain relies on a limited system often called working memory. Working memory allows information to remain temporarily available while it is being used. It helps a person remember the beginning of a sentence while listening to the end. It holds a number long enough to enter it somewhere. It keeps track of the steps in a short plan. This mental workspace is extremely useful, but it is not large. It cannot hold every concern, detail, and possibility with equal clarity at the same time. When too many things compete for space, the mind begins refreshing them. Remember the appointment. Do not forget the question. Return to the unfinished task. Think again about the conversation. The repetition can feel like overthinking, but part of it may be the brain trying to prevent information from disappearing. An unfinished thought returns because the mind is afraid that releasing it will mean losing it. This is why writing something down can sometimes create unexpected relief. The paper does not complete the task. It does not solve the problem. It gives the brain another place to store the reminder. The mind no longer has to hold the same sentence continuously in awareness. The concern may remain important, but it does not need to be repeated every few minutes in order to survive. External memory has always been part of human thinking. People use calendars, lists, maps, symbols, notebooks, alarms, and objects placed in unusual locations. These tools do not weaken memory. They allow the brain to use its limited attention for other purposes. A written note tells the nervous system that the information has not been lost. Can be returned to later. Overthinking often resists this idea because it treats thought as action. If the mind stops reviewing the issue, it may feel as though responsibility has been abandoned, but remembering is not the same as working. Rehearsing a task repeatedly does not necessarily move it closer to completion. Sometimes it only keeps the task emotionally active. The mind can spend an hour reminding itself to do something that would require 5 minutes the next morning. The repeated reminder creates fatigue without creating progress. Mental fatigue can then make the remaining concerns feel even more difficult. Working memory becomes less efficient when attention is divided. A person begins thinking about one issue, remembers another, briefly moves toward a third, and then returns to the first without remembering what had already been concluded. This creates a strange sense of mental motion. The mind is busy, but each line of thought remains incomplete. It is like walking between several rooms and never staying in one long enough to finish what was started. Task switching has a cost. Even when the tasks are only thoughts, the brain needs time to disengage from one pattern and activate another. A fragment of the previous thought may remain present while the next one begins. This leftover activity can make the mind feel noisier than the actual number of concerns would suggest. At bedtime, the effect may become more noticeable. There are no external tasks strong enough to organize attention. The mind moves among its open loops, according to whichever one produces the strongest emotional signal. Practical concern appears. Then a social memory interrupts it. Then a future possibility replaces the memory. Then the mind remembers that it was supposed to be resting and begins worrying about being awake. Now sleep itself has joined the list of unfinished tasks. The attempt to manage everything creates one more thing to manage. This can make rest feel like a performance. The mind begins calculating how many hours remain. It estimates how tired tomorrow may feel. It checks whether the body is relaxed. It wonders whether sleep is getting closer. Each check brings attention back toward wakefulness. Sleep becomes a project under observation, but sleep does not respond well to effort in the ordinary sense. Many waking tasks improve when more attention is applied. A difficult calculation may require concentration. A careful movement may require control. Sleep is different. It depends partly on the reduction of deliberate engagement. Trying harder can keep the systems of monitoring and evaluation active. This does not mean a person must force themselves to stop trying. That would simply create another instruction to follow. It means the mind can gradually release the idea that sleep must be produced correctly. Rest can begin before sleep. Lying quietly with the eyes closed is already different from continuing the day. Muscles can soften. Sensory input can decrease. Thoughts can become less organized. The transition does not need to happen at one exact moment. The brain may move towards sleep unevenly. A thought becomes vague. Then attention briefly sharpens. An image appears. A sentence loses its ending. The mind returns for a moment and then drifts again. These changes are not failures to sleep. They may be part of the process. Overthinking prefers clear boundaries. Awake or asleep. Solved or unsolved. Safe or unsafe. Right or wrong. But many biological processes change gradually. The evening becomes night through small shifts in light. Water cools by degrees. Clouds gather from invisible moisture. The mind also crosses into sleep through transitions that may be difficult to observe from inside. There is no need to identify the exact point when thinking becomes dreaming. The unfinished tasks can remain outside that boundary. They do not have to be carried across. The brain may offer one more reminder before letting go. Tomorrow, the message. The appointment, the question. Each can be acknowledged without being reopened. The message exists. The task has not vanished. The future will still contain the opportunity to respond. A concern does not become more secure simply because it is held tightly through the night. It can be placed somewhere quieter. Perhaps in a note, perhaps in a simple intention, perhaps in the understanding that the same mind will return in the morning. The morning mind will have access to daylight, movement, information, and action. The nighttime mind has a different role. It does not need to manage every open loop. It does not need to rehearse each responsibility to prove that it cares. For now, the mental rooms can be left as they are. A book may remain open on the table. A chair may stay slightly out of place. A question may rest without an answer. Nothing must be completed before the lights go out. The unfinished parts of life can wait in the darkness without becoming lost. And one by one, the mind may stop checking whether they are still there. Overthinking can sometimes appear to be a search for answers, when it is also a way of staying one step away from feeling. A difficult emotion begins to rise. Perhaps sadness, perhaps disappointment, perhaps embarrassment, loneliness, anger, or fear. Instead of remaining with the sensation itself, the mind quickly begins explaining it. Why did this happen? What does it mean? Who was responsible? What should happen next? The questions may feel productive because they use language, logic, and prediction. They create movement. But beneath that movement, the original feeling may remain almost untouched. Human beings often experience emotion through the body before they fully understand it. There may be heaviness behind the eyes, tightness in the throat, warmth in the face, pressure in the chest, or a hollow sensation in the stomach. Only afterward does the mind place words around the experience. Something feels wrong. I am disappointed. I feel exposed. I am afraid of what comes next. Language can help organize emotion. Naming an experience may make it less confusing and easier to communicate. But language can also carry the mind away from direct experience. Instead of noticing sadness, The mind constructs a detailed investigation into why sadness should not be present. Instead of noticing uncertainty, it begins predicting every possible result. Instead of allowing anger to rise and fall, it rehearses arguments long after the event has ended. Thinking becomes a protective layer. The mind is still connected to the emotion, but indirectly. This protection is understandable. Feelings can seem less controllable than thoughts. A problem can be analyzed. A question can be repeated. An explanation can be improved. But an emotion may not offer a clear task. It may simply need to be felt for a while. The analytical mind can find this uncomfortable. It wants to convert the experience into something with steps, causes, and conclusions. If the correct explanation can be found, perhaps the feeling can be removed. Yet emotions do not always disappear when their causes are understood. A person can know exactly why they are grieving and still feel grief. They can understand why a change was necessary and still miss what was lost. They can recognize that a fear is unlikely and still feel the body respond. Understanding and feeling belong to related but different processes. One does not automatically cancel the other. Overthinking may continue because the mind keeps trying to solve an emotional state as though it were an error in logic. But sadness is not a failed argument. Uncertainty is not always a missing calculation. Disappointment may remain even after every relevant fact has been examined. This does not mean reflection is useless. Thinking can reveal needs, patterns, and choices. It can identify whether an apology is needed, whether a boundary has been crossed, or whether practical action is possible. The difficulty begins when analysis continues after it has already discovered everything currently available. At that point, the repeated questions may be keeping attention near the emotion without allowing the emotion to complete its natural course. Emotions are not usually fixed states. They change across time. They rise, peak, soften, mix with other feelings, and sometimes return. The body adjusts. Attention shifts. New information appears. A feeling that seems permanent in the middle of the night may be weaker in the morning. Not because it was false, but because emotion is dynamic. Overthinking can make a feeling seem more stable than it is. Each repeated thought reactivates part of the emotional response. The memory is reviewed. The body reacts. The reaction makes the memory feel current. The cycle begins again. It is as though the mind keeps touching the surface of water to check whether the ripples have stopped. Each touch creates another ripple. Sometimes allowing an emotion to exist without immediate explanation gives it more room to change. This does not require dramatic self-examination. The experience can be described simply. There is disappointment here. There is nervousness here. There is tiredness mixed with uncertainty. The words do not need to form a complete story. They can function like labels on quiet containers. Research into emotional awareness often suggests that putting feelings into words can change how they are processed. The effect is not magical, and it does not erase difficult experiences. But clear, gentle naming may reduce some of the confusion created when the body is reacting and the mind does not know why. A named feeling becomes one experience among many, rather than an unnamed warning filling the entire system. The choice of words can matter. People often use thoughts as though they were emotions. I feel that everything will go wrong. Sounds like a feeling, but it contains a prediction. The underlying emotion may be fear. I feel that nobody understands me. Contains an interpretation. The underlying feeling may be loneliness or frustration. Separating the feeling from the story does not prove the story wrong. It simply reveals two different layers. There is the emotion, and there is the mind's explanation of the emotion. The explanation may later be examined with evidence. The feeling can be acknowledged now. This distinction can make inner experience less crowded. Instead of managing an entire imagined future, the mind may notice one present sensation: a tight throat, warm cheeks, tired heaviness, a wish for reassurance. The body often communicates in simpler terms than the stories built around it. Sometimes the need beneath overthinking is not more information. It may be rest, it may be comfort, it may be time. It may be a conversation that cannot happen until tomorrow. It may be permission to feel disappointed without immediately deciding what the disappointment means about the future. The mind may resist this simplicity. It may return with another question. But why? What if? What does this prove? Questions are familiar tools, and the brain may reach for them automatically. They do not have to be answered every time they appear. A question can be noticed as an attempt to move away from uncertainty. Then attention can return to something quieter, not to solve the feeling, only to make space for it. Emotions often become more manageable when they are not required to justify their presence. A person can feel sad even when the situation could have been worse. They can feel nervous even when they are prepared. They can feel relief and regret at the same time. Several emotions can occupy the same experience without producing a contradiction. The mind prefers a single, clear explanation. The heart and body are often less orderly. They hold mixtures. Care can exist beside anger. Hope can exist beside fear. Acceptance can exist beside sadness. Nothing is wrong with this complexity. It does not need to be simplified before sleep. Tonight, the mind may continue trying to turn every feeling into a problem. It has learned that problems can be worked on, but not everything within us is asking for work. Some experiences are asking only to be noticed. A feeling may remain for a while without becoming an emergency. It may rest in the body like a quiet weather system moving across a distant valley. There is no need to chase it. No need to measure each cloud. No need to predict the exact moment when the sky will clear. The weather can move at its own pace. And the mind, no longer required to explain every change, can become a little quieter beneath it. Overthinking can continue partly because it does not always feel useless. Sometimes it feels responsible. The mind reviews the situation and experiences a brief sense of control. It checks one more detail, considers one more outcome, and feels, for a moment, slightly more prepared. That small sense of preparation can reward the habit. The answer may still be unclear. The problem may still be unresolved. But the act of thinking creates the impression that something is being done. This is important because the brain learns not only from final results, but also from what brings temporary relief. A person feels uncertain. They begin analyzing. For a few moments, uncertainty decreases. The mind therefore learns that analysis is a possible response to discomfort. The next time uncertainty appears, the same response arrives more quickly. Think again. Check again. Review the possibilities once more. The relief may last only briefly, which means the behavior is soon repeated. This pattern resembles many ordinary habits. A signal appears. A familiar action follows. The action produces some kind of result. Over time, the sequence becomes easier to activate. The signal may be a delayed message, an unfinished task, a strange tone of voice, or the simple quiet of bedtime. The action is mental review. The result is a temporary feeling that the issue is being monitored. The mind may then repeat the cycle without consciously deciding to begin. Checking is one common form of this pattern. A person checks whether an email was sent correctly. then checks again. They review whether the door was locked, whether the appointment time was remembered, or whether a sentence could be misunderstood. One check can provide useful information. Repeated checks often provide the same information, yet the later checks may feel less satisfying than the first. Instead of creating confidence, they sometimes weaken it. The person remembers checking, but begins wondering whether they were paying enough attention. Perhaps the memory of the check is only the memory of an earlier check. Perhaps something changed afterward. Perhaps one detail was missed. The attempt to create certainty produces another reason to doubt. This happens because certainty based entirely on internal feeling can be difficult to complete. The mind expects a clear sensation of being finished, but feelings of completion vary with tiredness, stress, attention, and mood. A task can be complete without feeling complete. A message can be accurate without producing perfect confidence. A decision can be reasonable while the body still feels uncertain. If action continues until all discomfort disappears, a stopping point may keep moving. Overthinking often waits for the emotion of certainty rather than the presence of sufficient evidence. These are not the same thing. Evidence belongs to the situation. The feeling of certainty belongs to the nervous system. Evidence might show that the date was checked, the work was reviewed, or the necessary information was gathered. The nervous system may still ask for one more round, not because the evidence has changed, but because discomfort remains. This is why repeated reassurance can also have a temporary quality. A person asks whether everything is all right. They receive a calm answer. For a while, the worry softens. Then the mind notices another possibility. Maybe the other person was only being polite. Maybe they did not understand the question. Maybe the reassurance no longer applies. A new question forms from the answer to the previous one. Reassurance can be warm and helpful, especially when people genuinely need information or support. But no other person can remove every possible doubt from an uncertain future. There will always be another angle from which the situation can be examined. This is not because the reassurance failed. It is because imagination has no fixed boundary. The mind can continue generating conditions indefinitely. What if the unlikely event happens? What if the exception applies? What if something important has not yet been noticed? Possibility is not the same as probability. Almost anything can be imagined. Far fewer things are likely to occur. Overthinking often gives possibility the emotional weight of probability. Once an event can be pictured clearly, it begins to feel closer. A vivid possibility may therefore seem more important than a quiet, ordinary outcome that is statistically more common. The brain is strongly influenced by what is easy to imagine. A dramatic failure creates a detailed scene. An ordinary success may produce almost no image at all. The mind then mistakes vividness for likelihood. This tendency is understandable. Events that are striking, emotional, or memorable are easier to retrieve. They arrive quickly when the brain searches for examples. But the easiest example to remember is not always the best guide to what will happen next. Rare events can dominate attention precisely because they are unusual. Ordinary outcomes are less memorable because they happen quietly. The meeting that goes reasonably well leaves little mental trace. The journey completed without difficulty becomes part of the background. The conversation that contains no serious misunderstanding is soon forgotten. Daily life is filled with uneventful outcomes, but overthinking rarely produces long rehearsals of them. It prepares for the exceptional problem. The brain may believe that imagining a difficult event will reduce the shock if it occurs. There is some truth in preparation. Considering a realistic challenge can help someone make a plan, but repeatedly experiencing an imagined event does not necessarily create useful readiness. It may simply allow the body to undergo the stress response many times before anything has happened. The mind pays an emotional cost for each rehearsal. If the event never occurs, that cost was spent on a future that did not exist. If it does occur, the person still meets the real event only once. This does not mean the mind should imagine only pleasant outcomes. A balanced mind can notice difficulty without living inside it. It can ask whether practical preparation is possible. If so, one clear step may be enough. Bring the document. Set the alarm. Write down the question. Leave extra time. After the action is identified, continued rehearsal may no longer be planning. It may be the habit searching for the familiar relief of one more check. Habits weaken not only when they are prevented, but when a different response becomes available, uncertainty appears. Instead of entering the full mental loop, the mind may recognize what is happening. There is the signal. There is the urge to review. There is the promise that one more thought will finally make everything feel certain. The promise may be familiar. It does not have to be obeyed immediately. A pause can exist between discomfort and analysis. Inside that pause, the person may ask a simpler question. Is there new information here? Is there a useful action available now? If the answer is no, the mind may be repeating rather than solving. This recognition does not always make the urge disappear. Habits can continue offering themselves even after they are understood. The brain prefers familiar pathways because they require less effort to activate. A well-used path through a forest remains visible even when another route has been chosen. For a while, the eyes still notice the old entrance. There is no need to remove the path tonight. It can remain where it is. The mind may still suggest another review, another prediction, or another check. The suggestion is only the beginning of the old sequence. It is not the entire sequence. Nothing must follow. The discomfort may rise slightly when the familiar response is not completed. Then, like many internal signals, it may change on its own. A wave does not require an explanation before it reaches the shore. It gathers, moves, and loses its shape. The urge to think again can do something similar. It may appear with strength. It may promise relief. And if it is allowed to pass without another full journey around the same question, the night can remain quiet enough for the next wave to become smaller. Overthinking is often described as too much thought. But the amount of thinking is not the only thing that matters. The direction of thought matters too. A mind can be active without feeling trapped. It can wander through memories, images, ideas, and possibilities in a way that feels spacious. It may move from one subject to another without demanding a conclusion. This kind of mental wandering is part of creativity. It allows distant ideas to meet. A place remembered from childhood may connect with a problem from the present. A shape seen in nature may inspire a design. A fragment of music may bring forward an emotion that language could not reach directly. The mind is not always most useful when it is tightly controlled. Sometimes understanding appears after attention loosens. This is one reason solutions occasionally arrive while walking, showering, washing dishes, or preparing to sleep. The person is no longer pressing directly against the problem. Mental activity continues in the background, but the repeated effort has softened. New associations become possible. Psychologists sometimes describe this as incubation. A problem is considered for a while and then set aside. During the pause, the mind may continue reorganizing information without the same level of conscious control. When attention later returns, an answer may feel sudden. It appears as though it came from nowhere. In reality, the brain may have been quietly exploring connections while conscious thought was occupied elsewhere. Incubation does not guarantee a solution, but it shows that stepping away is not always the same as giving up. Rest can be part of thinking. Overthinking often prevents this process because it keeps attention fixed on the most familiar route. The same assumptions are used. The same questions are repeated. The same imagined ending is examined from slightly different angles. Mental effort increases while mental variety decreases. The mind becomes like a traveler walking faster along a circular path. More movement does not create a new destination. Creative thought often requires a wider landscape. It benefits from allowing the problem to become less dominant for a while. A different sound, image, physical movement, or ordinary task may activate information that had been outside the narrow circle of attention. This helps explain why forcing an idea can sometimes make it harder to find. The effort to produce the perfect sentence, remember the exact name, or discover the correct solution may create tension and reduce flexibility. When the search is briefly released, the missing word may arrive on its own. The brain was not inactive during the pause. It was simply searching differently. Overthinking can therefore be understood as a problem of mental grip. The mind holds one subject so tightly that it cannot easily turn it around. It fears that releasing the problem will mean losing control of it. But a thought does not have to remain at the center of awareness in order for the brain to retain it. Important information can remain available without being actively repeated. The nervous system is capable of setting something down and returning later. In daily life, people often trust this process without noticing. A musician pauses during practice and finds the movement easier the next day. A writer leaves a difficult paragraph and later sees a simpler structure. A person steps away from an argument and eventually understands what they were truly trying to express. Time does not solve every problem, but distance can change what becomes visible. Overthinking usually assumes that the next minute of analysis will be different from the previous 20. Perhaps one more review will uncover the missing point. Sometimes it does, but when the mind is using the same information in the same emotional state, the result may remain the same. A tired mind repeatedly processing tired thoughts is unlikely to create the perspective of a rested one. This is not a personal weakness. It is a limit of the current conditions. Attention, emotion, memory, and physical state all influence which ideas become available. Changing the conditions may be more useful than increasing the effort. Sleep is one of the largest changes available to the brain. Across the night, the brain moves through several repeating stages. These stages differ in brain activity, muscle tone, eye movement, and the way information is processed. Some periods are associated with slow, synchronized activity. Others contain vivid dreaming and patterns that in certain ways resemble waking thought. Memory processing continues across these changing states. Recent experiences may be strengthened, reorganized, or connected with older knowledge. The exact functions of every sleep process are still being studied, but sleep clearly supports learning, attention, and emotional regulation. A night of rest does not merely pause thought. It changes the mind that will think again. This is why a problem left unfinished before sleep may feel different in the morning. The brain has not necessarily found a hidden answer. It may have reduced the emotional intensity surrounding the question. It may have made relevant memories easier to reach. It may simply have restored the flexibility needed to consider another interpretation. Morning clarity can seem mysterious because the effort was invisible. Nothing appeared to be happening. Yet the sleeping brain was not empty. It was maintaining the body, adjusting internal systems, and processing parts of the day beyond conscious observation. Overthinking has difficulty trusting invisible processes. It trusts effort because effort can be felt. The repeated sentence is noticeable. The checking is noticeable. The tension creates the impression of serious work. Rest feels less productive because its work happens quietly, but many important processes are quiet. The wound closes without constant supervision. Breathing adjusts during sleep. Memories settle without being deliberately arranged. Seeds change beneath the soil before anything appears above it. Not everything useful announces itself through effort. The mind may sometimes need permission to become less efficient for a while, to drift, to move through images without extracting a lesson, to notice the sound of rain without turning it into a memory, to imagine a landscape without asking what it represents. This looser state is not wasted time. It is part of the natural range of human attention. The brain alternates between focus and openness, between deliberate action and spontaneous association, between holding and releasing. Overthinking tries to remain in the holding state. It treats release as dangerous. Yet release is what allows attention to reset. A closed hand cannot receive anything new. The mind does not need to force itself open. Force would only create another form of grip. It can simply notice when nothing new is being discovered. The question has been examined. The possibilities have been visited. The familiar path is visible once again. At that point, stopping is not failure. It is the change of method. The problem can move to the edge of awareness. Other sensations can return. The quiet temperature of the room, the distant movement of air, the shifting weight of the body. Thought may continue, but it no longer needs to march in a straight line. It can loosen into fragments, a shape, a color, half-finished image, a memory without a question attached. These softer forms of thought often appear near sleep. Language becomes less organized. Connections become strange and gentle. The mind begins moving without requiring every step to make waking sense. There is no need to follow it closely. The unfinished problem can remain somewhere behind these drifting images. The brain knows where it is. It does not need to be reminded again tonight. And while conscious effort goes quieter, another kind of intelligence may continue working in the dark, slowly and silently, without asking to be watched. Overthinking often begins with the belief that the mind must stay awake until everything feels settled. One more question, one more possibility, one more careful review before rest can begin. But life rarely becomes completely settled. There is almost always something unfinished somewhere. A message waiting for morning, a decision waiting for more information, a memory that still carries emotion, a future that has not yet revealed its shape. If the mind required perfect resolution before sleeping, rest would always remain just beyond reach. Fortunately, the brain does not need every problem to disappear. It needs permission to stop working on them for a while. This is a different kind of completion. The issue may remain open, but tonight's effort can close. The question may remain unanswered, but the search can pause. The future may remain uncertain, but the body can stop rehearsing it. Overthinking sometimes makes pausing feel irresponsible, It suggests that a person who truly cares would continue reviewing. A person who is prepared would consider every outcome. A person who is careful would not allow attention to drift. But care is not measured by the number of hours spent circling the same concern. Responsibility includes knowing when the present mind has reached the edge of what it can usefully do. There are moments for analysis. There are moments for conversation and action. And there are moments when the most sensible response is to let the nervous system recover. Rest is not the opposite of responsibility. It helps make responsibility possible tomorrow. A tired mind often narrows. A rested mind can notice choices, context, and details that were previously hidden. Rest does not guarantee that every problem will become easy. It simply allows the next encounter with the problem to begin under different conditions. You may still wake with the same question, but you will not be exactly the same person asking it. The night will have passed through you. The body will have completed quiet work. The mind may have created a little distance around what once felt too close. Distance is not indifference. A mountain does not become less real when viewed from farther away. Its shape may become clearer. The smaller ridges can be seen as part of the whole. A difficult thought may change in the same way. When held close, it fills awareness. When allowed to rest at a distance, it becomes one part of a much larger life. There are other thoughts, other memories, other mornings, other people, places, and possibilities that the nighttime mind cannot see clearly from this narrow moment. Overthinking often speaks as though the current feeling will continue forever. This is one of its quiet illusions. Motions change. Attention moves. The body becomes hungry, rested, distracted, comforted, or engaged with something new. A thought that feels enormous at midnight may barely appear during an ordinary afternoon, not because the concern was imaginary, because no thought occupies the center permanently. The mind is a changing environment. Weather passes through it. Light changes across it. Some patterns return often, but even familiar storms are not the sky itself. You are not required to make the sky perfectly clear. You do not need to remove every cloud before morning. You can let thought remain part of the atmosphere without treating it as the whole horizon. Perhaps the mind will continue speaking for a little while. It may return to something discussed earlier. It may invent one final conversation. It may check tomorrow's path or replay yesterday's turn. There is no need to become frustrated with it. The mind has practiced these movements many times. Familiar systems do not always become silent the moment they are understood. They may need gentleness more than instruction. A repeating thought can be met without argument. Yes, the mind is thinking about this again. Yes, uncertainty is still present. Yes, no final answer has appeared. And still, the body can remain here, supported, warm enough, breathing without supervision. The night does not ask you to become a different person. It does not ask you to solve the habit of overthinking before you are allowed to sleep. There is no test to pass, no perfect mental technique to perform. Even trying to release a thought can become another form of effort if release is turned into a demand, so nothing has to be forced away. The mind can hold the question loosely, like a small object resting in an open hand. The hand does not throw it. It does not squeeze. It simply stops gripping. This is often how letting go really feels. Not a dramatic disappearance, slight reduction in effort, a sentence that is not completed, an image that fades at the edges, a question that returns without receiving another answer. The thought is still there, but the relationship to it becomes quieter. Soon, attention may begin to lose its sharp boundaries. The room may feel farther away. Sounds may become less distinct. Inner speech may break into fragments. A memory may blend with an unfamiliar place. A path may become a river. A window may open into a sky that cannot exist during waking life. This gentle loosening is part of the movement towards sleep. There is no need to observe it carefully. Observation may become another way of staying awake. You can let the process remain unmeasured. Sleep does not need to be confirmed as it arrives. It can approach quietly, behind the last organized thoughts. The mind may still offer one final concern. Perhaps it will say that something important could be forgotten, but truly important things can return. A note can be written tomorrow. A conversation can be resumed. A choice can be reconsidered. A mistake can sometimes be repaired, and what cannot be changed does not become more changeable through another hour of mental repetition. Tonight has already carried enough. The day has already been examined. You have followed many paths through memory, prediction, emotion, attention, and uncertainty. You do not need to walk them again. They will remain where they are. The lake will still hold the reflection after you stop watching it. The stars will continue their slow movement when the observatory is empty. The train will travel through the rain after the lamp has been turned low. The clouds will cross the valley without being counted. And the mind, too, can continue its quiet movement without requiring your full attention. There's nothing left to understand tonight, nothing left to prove. Nothing that must become certain before rest begins. The thoughts can grow softer now. The spaces between them can widen. The body can become heavier. The night can become deeper. And somewhere beyond the last unfinished sentence, sleep can arrive without explanation.